So yeah, my article, I guess, just in general, I think I explained it a little bit, is
Yeah.
about how, the most common type of gun
Okay.
homicide is a suicide, but it's not something we hear a whole lot about, I
Okay.
guess. So yeah, and even in, Mahoning County, where we have Youngstown,
Uh-huh.
a fair amount of gun violence.
Sure.
There are more suicides than homicides.
Okay.
Does that surprise you? Is that normal?
No. No, that's about normal. In any medical examiner's office, you'll find that homicides tend to run about 10% of the caseload, and suicides tend to run somewhere between 10 and maybe 15% of the caseload. So I think for the time period that you asked about, there was maybe 38. I think I found actually 39 suicides. Okay, 35 homicides, 39 suicides. No, that doesn't surprise me.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, did you work in another coroner's office before?
Oh yeah.
Mahoning, or-
Yep.
okay.
I worked at Franklin County Coroner's Office at Columbus, and then before that was the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office in Florida.
Okay, gotcha. Is that where you're from?
No, I'm a Youngstowner.
Okay.
Yep. I grew up behind Lanterman's Mill,
Okay.
Lake Newport, that area.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I guess, maybe asking you to speculate a little bit here, but any thoughts on, why that is that there are more suicides than homicides? Is it just that kind of mental depression is that common? Has it always been that way?
I think it's always been that way. Ever since I've been in school, the rule of thumb is homicides tend to be about 10% of the caseload, which is surprising, and I think maybe one of the reasons for that is that homicides tend to get a lot of public attention, media, etc., and so that naturally in the minds of the community makes it seem like that there may be more cases. Suicides aren't really talked about so much, and
I suppose to some extent there's a good reason for that. I mean, you don't want to invade the privacy of somebody who's suffered a loss like that, whereas a homicide maybe affects the community a little bit more.
well, yes, I find that suicide tends to be a very personal, deeply personal decision, and my experience has been also that there's a certain degree of embarrassment on behalf of the family when a family member commits suicide, and this may explain, at least in part, why they're not talked about as much.
In terms of mental health, that seems to be something that people talk about
Sure.
a lot is, that's something that doesn't really get picked up on when somebody applies to get a gun.
Right.
Does this person have a history of mental health problems?
Right.
Either in themselves or their family?
Right.
Do you have any thoughts on, I guess in your experience, is that true or not, A, and B, if it is true, how can that communication be improved?
Huh. You know what? I guess I really don't know enough about the applying for a gun aspects of the problem well enough to comment.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sure that there are people with mental illness who get guns,
Yeah.
My experience in the mental health field, though decades old, was that very, very few mentally ill people are harmful to other people. They tend to be harmful to themselves. And again, I'm not speaking as a psychiatrist.
Yeah. Okay, well, but I guess that is, to me, kind of illuminating that you said mentally ill people more tend to harm themselves than others.
Yeah. And that's based on my experience as
Sure.
a clinical pharmacist at the state psychiatric hospital, as well as me just being a doctor. So.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, you said you worked as a clinical pharmacist at the state psych board?
Yes, the state hospital in Columbus back in the 80s.
Gotcha.
I've got some really good stories.
Yeah, I can imagine having that position either. But, I mean, I guess that does kind of, if indeed this is a hole in the background check process for somebody, mental health,
Yeah,
then, at least based on that statement, it would be especially harmful to people who are suicidal, because more of these people who might get a gun and use it to commit suicide are kind of falling through the cracks, whereas if, and again, this is all assuming that this is a hole in the background check, more of those people are falling through the cracks, getting guns and committing suicide, I guess.
Well, based on the gunshot suicides that I have had, let's talk from my caseload. Very few people, I've had very few cases where the person goes out, buys a gun, turns around and commits suicide. The most common scenario that I run into is the person who already has a gun in the house. It's a family member's, it's an old family heirloom, it's a hunting gun that has been used for other purposes, already available, not going out with the intent. Not to say that I haven't. I have had a few of those cases, but more commonly, the gun's already in the house or available somehow.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, yeah, that's also kind of, I guess, good data to know. So again, that more just speaks to kind of the general availability of guns rather than the gun background check process.
Sure.
Which, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm not very helpful
No, that's
in that
fine.
area.
No, that's fine, and that's why I'm hoping to talk to some of these law
Yeah.
members. See what they say. So.
I wonder if it would be interesting if you spoke to some of the guys like out at Fin, Feather, and Fur. What is the process, and do you run into people who you have to say, no, you got to go away?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Now you got me all worked up about it, all caffeinated about it.
No, I understand. Okay, I guess any other common threads that you see among suicides that you deal with, and then two, among specifically gun suicides that you deal with?
None that we haven't already discussed.
Yeah.
I think in terms of suicide, one of the biggest predictors of suicide is attempts at suicide in the past. I do find, I guess, a trend that when the person has tried pills in the past, they'll try pills again.
Okay. Gotcha. So kind of past behavior is the best predictor of future behavior in your experience?
Yep.
Okay. And again, that just comes down to something that family, friends, neighbors need to be watching for?
Yep.
Okay. No other, I guess, no other trends that you see among gun suicides? Either, I don't know, either places that they happen, or say times, anything?
No.
I mean, do they tend to, I guess I'm assuming, but happen with people who have a history of clinical mental illness, or is it more just something that goes undiagnosed?
Yeah.
Thoughts on that?
I think it's a common misconception that, well, someone did this horrible, this gory act to themselves, shot themselves in the head. They must be mentally ill, but it doesn't work that way. I find that the majority of people who commit suicide are not clinically diagnosed, are not diagnosed with schizophrenia or even depression, though those things may be simply undiagnosed. I think that a long period of isolation, depression, stressful events, I mean seriously stressful events in a person's life, a struggle with drug abuse, loss of family, loss of a wife or spouse like this, loss of a child, would make someone vulnerable to suicide. We just spoke of the woman who lost a child to a dog. I can't imagine what that woman would be going through, that mother would be going through.
Yeah. Absolutely. So sometimes it's more, just these things happen and the person is feeling under a tremendous amount of stress.
Right.
Rather than some kind of
Yeah.
medically diagnosed illness.
Right.
Yeah.
Stressed and isolated.
Yeah.
I don't know who I could turn to. I don't know how I would get help.
Yeah.
There seems to be only one way out.
Yeah.
People who are desperately in debt,
Yeah.
the bank's going to come take their house. I can't imagine
Yeah.
that kind of stress. And people think, wow, there's only one way out.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that covers all my questions. Anything
Okay.
else you'd like to add?
Nope,
No.
I'm good.